as being in favour of the filioque, but what even the opponents of union in the East couldn't do was interpret the Western Fathers as denying the filioque. And the problem this raised for the opponents of reunion was that if their interpretation of the Eastern Fathers was adopted, it would mean that the Eastern and Western Fathers had always disagreed and that there wasn't a common doctrine of the Trinity across all the Fathers of the Church. But the Western Fathers are also venerated in the Byzantine liturgy. So if the Eastern anti-Unionists were to accuse adherents of the filioque of heresy, they would have to accuse the Western Fathers of the Church of heresy, and therefore their own forebears of having liturgically venerated for 1,000 years heretics. So essentially there was no way round that argument. Every single Byzantine delegate ultimately accepted that the true common doctrine of the Church was that the Spirit proceeds from the Father through the Son, and that the difference between the expression "and the Son" and "through the Son" really merely reflected a linguistic variation between Eastern and Western usage, not any substantive doctrinal disagreement. Only one Byzantine delegate refused to accept this, a man called Mark of Ephesus, and he didn't even claim that he didn't have any way of answering the argument about the Fathers of the Church. He had to claim that every single writing of a Western Father that supported the filioque was a forgery, which was an obviously absurd conspiracy theory, which would be quite impossible to achieve a forgery on that scale. As one of the Byzantine delegates pointed out to him in frustration, but Mark of Ephesus left Florence before the council concluded and managed to get back to Constantinople, where he set himself up as the principal opponent of the reunion. But the reunion was agreed by the Patriarch and the Emperor and the delegates of the other patriarchs and the other Byzantine delegates, and the great document Letentor Caeli, establishing the doctrine of the Church on all these topics, was agreed, the text in both Greek and Latin, and it was solemnly proclaimed by Bessarion, Bishop of Nicaea, and Cardinal Giuliano Cesarini from the west door of the cathedral in Florence, in the presence of the Emperor and the Pope. And very significantly in that bull, the Byzantine Emperor is once again, for the first time since the coronation of Charlemagne in 800, described in a papal document as Emperor of the Romans, clinching the reconciliation of East and West. And many of those present wept, and church bells were rung throughout Western Christendom